Hey there, welcome everybody to another edition of TXN Sports World. I am your host, Anthony Florio, joined as always by good old MF Michael Fletcher. We are awaiting maybe the presence of Michael Bullock. If he comes in, we'll catch him up on what he missed. If not, then we'll hopefully have him back with us tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk. Light docket this week as we are going to recap the women's and men's Final Four. We're also going to preview. We're also going to preview Week 3 of the UFL. So that's all we got for you here tonight. So without any further ado, let's get it started here. We're going to start it off with the women's NCAA tournament, the Final Four that went down last week up in Phoenix, Arizona, at the Mortgage Matchup Center in Phoenix, Arizona. The Final Four, we had all four number one seeds. All four number one seeds made it to the Final Four. You had the number one overall seed, the UConn Huskies. You had the number two seed, the number two overall seed, the UCLA Bruins. The number three overall seed, the Texas Longhorns. And the number four overall seed, South Carolina Gamecocks. First game last Friday. How this was the semifinal and not the final is mind-boggling to me, but it is what it is. It was South Carolina versus UConn. South Carolina winning the game 62-48. Tania Lawson led the way with 16 points for South Carolina. She also had 11 rebounds. And for UConn, it was Sarah Strong with 12 points and 12 rebounds of her own. We also had a very heated altercation at the end of the game. Gino Auriemma and Dawn Staley had a few words after the game was over. Very heated moment. The next day, Gino Auriemma apologized for the outburst, and very unfortunate, but nonetheless, a very unfortunate incident, but nonetheless, South Carolina moved on to the championship game, 62-48. The second game featured the UCLA Bruins versus the Texas Longhorns, and it was UCLA defeating Texas by a final score of 51-44. And those games were last Friday. And now we move on to this past Sunday, Easter Sunday. And here's the story. This one was for Coach Corey Close and Lauren Betts and all the current players wearing UCLA on their jerseys. But it was also for Ann Myers Drysdale and Denise Curry and John Wooden and every Bruin who poured effort into what would become the first ever national championship in UCLA women's basketball history. The UCLA Bruins defeated the South Carolina Gamecocks. They didn't just defeat them, they smashed them 79-51 in the national championship game, and they did it the same way they have won all season, with a dominating inside presence, an unselfish offensive approach, and a suffocating defense that handed the Gamecocks their second worst loss in NCAA tournament history. The 28-point margin of victory, third largest in a Division I women's championship final. UCLA never trailed, opening a double-digit lead at the end of the first quarter en route to its 31st straight win to make history. And Lauren Betts was also named the most outstanding player of the Final Four after the game. In her 15th season at the helm, Coach Corey Close pulled off what many didn't believe was possible at one of the most storied basketball programs in the country. UCLA last won a national title in women's basketball in 1978. in the AIAW when Aaron Myers Drysdale and Curry led the way. John Wooden won 10 national championships with the men's team and set a standard that other coaches on the Los Angeles campus wanted to follow. Indeed, as a 22-year-old assistant at UCLA, Close began what would become a deep relationship with Wooden. She became the head coach at UCLA the year after John Wooden died, and she credits him to this day for helping her become the coach she is now. She said, and I quote, "I remember thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I don't want to let him down," tearing up as she spoke. "The biggest way I can pay it forward is to live in a way and coach in a way and teach in a way that pays it forward what he did for me." With all those lessons, Close guided the team on a mission Sunday to avenge a poor Final Four appearance last year. This senior-laden group was determined to be the first team to win that elusive national championship. With Myers Drysdale in attendance, UCLA asserted its game plan from the opening tip, immediately feeding bets inside. Close had talked about her team being too reactive last year in a double-digit national semifinal loss. It was the opposite in this year's championship game. The Bruins were aggressive, using their size to get into the paint while altering shot after shot on defense. 5 UCLA players finished in double figures. Betts had 14 points and 11 rebounds, but it was UCLA senior Gabriela Jaquez who was perhaps most impactful, as she not only found open shots, but also fed her teammates and got inside to grab one rebound after another. Jaquez, who has played her entire college career at UCLA, had 21 points, 10 rebounds, and 5 assists in a performance that will not soon be forgotten. For the player who grew up dreaming of playing at UCLA, with a big brother, Jaime Jr., who competed in the Final Four with the men's team in 2021. The championship was especially meaningful, all the more so with Jaime, who now plays for the NBA's Miami Heat, taking a flight to join their parents, younger brother, and other family members in Phoenix. At the end of the first half, UCLA had the rebounding advantage and outscored South Carolina in the paint 20-12. 6 UCLA players, all seniors, scored in the first half, each with at least 2 field goals. South Carolina changed its defensive approach and started pressing, but UCLA figured that out as well and had a 36-23 advantage at the half. South Carolina shot 9 out of 35. Their star player, Joyce Edwards, was 1 of 6 with only 2 points. It was the Gamecocks' worst field goal percentage in any half of any game since December of 2022, when they shot 26% in the first half against South Dakota State. They ended this game shooting 29%. Their 3 best players, Joyce Edwards, Tania Lotson, and Raven Johnson, finished with a combined 15 points on 5 of 22 shooting. South Carolina became the first team to lose consecutive national championship game appearances by at least 15 points each. UCLA opened the second half on a 12-3 run, and the route to a championship was on. The Bruins became the 8th team in the last 30 years to win their debut national championship, while Corey Close became the longest tenured head coach at a single school to win a long-awaited first national championship. After cutting down the nets, Betts and Close made their way into the stands, hugging former players, family members, UCLA staffers, and others who helped the Bruins reach this moment. Betts and former teammates Cameron Brown and Izzy Anstey hugged and cried. Close, always eager to put the spotlight on others instead of herself, has credited everyone from the 1978 team to John Wooden to all the players and assistants along the way. As she finished up giving out hugs, Close turned to the UCLA group still in their seats, raised their arms, and simply said, "We did it." Damn right you did it. And you did it in grand style, putting away a very, very good South Carolina team, multi-time national champion. Dawn Staley is the real deal. That's all there is to say. And you know they're going to be back next year. Gino and UConn, they're going to be back next year. But we're not talking about next year. We're talking about this year. And UCLA, you think of UCLA. You think of UCLA basketball, you always think of the men. You think of John Wooden. You think of Bill Walton. and all those teams in the 60s and 70s who were winning championship after championship after championship. And then it was the night. I mean, they haven't had a night like this since 1995 when Jim Herrick, old friend of Rhode Island, Jim Herrick, before he went to URI, Jim Herrick coached the UCLA Bruins to their 11th and last national championship in 95 with the likes of Ed O'Bannon and Tyus Edney when they defeated Arkansas at the old Kingdome. 31 years that school has waited for a moment like this. And when you think of women's basketball, you cannot help but think about UConn, Tennessee, Stanford, South Carolina, Baylor, Louisiana Tech, Texas, USC with Cheryl Miller back in the day. But you never would think when people would say UCLA, nah, it's the men's program. The men's program. The women will never amount to anything. Oh yeah? Corey Close said, "Hold my beer," and that's exactly what she did. When it comes to teams winning championships, and MF, you know this, there's nothing I enjoy more than seeing a team either win it for the first time or a team winning a championship for the first time in X amount of years. And we're going to get to that in just a minute on the men's side. But nonetheless, congratulations to the UCLA Bruins. First time ever they win the women's national championship. It's 12 overall. The women finally get theirs after the men brought home 11. 31 years they've waited for a moment like this. The men's team had a couple of shots at it, in years past, but they couldn't get over the hump. But this is the year they got over the hump on the women's side, and one of the most lops. This is going to rank as one of the. It's the third largest margin of victory. The largest margin of victory in a title game was UConn over Louisville in 2013. UConn won that game by 33. This was 28. Congratulations, UCLA. Coach Corey Close, Lauren Betts, Gabriella Jaquez, and the rest of that team. You earned it. You damn sure deserve it. You did a hell of a job. Enjoy every second of it. Drink it all in, because what you did on Sunday was absolutely magical. And they will remember this for the rest of their lives. What a moment. What a story. Good old MF Michael Fletcher, come on in. The UCLA Bruins. We talked about it on the men's side. They won 11 of them. 10 by John Wooden, 1 by Jimmy Herrick. And now Corey Close can say, I led the ladies to our first ever national championship. What a story.
And it was a remarkable story. It was a remarkable performance, and one that will never be forgotten. Look, a lot of the times when you talk about college basketball, and especially on the women's side, the domination has been about South Carolina, back in the day when Pat Summitt and Tennessee was running around. Then you had Muffet McGraw and Notre Dame. Then you had, obviously, Gio Auriemma and UConn. There was never a team that has had a national championship out west. Now, you can say the California Lady Bears. You can talk about USC, the USC women. You can talk about all these other teams. And this was one of those years that, UCLA got to the Final Four a year ago and got obliterated, unfortunately got destroyed, and got taken out by UConn. UConn eventually went on to win the national championship. And that was their motivation to say, we're close, but we need to get over the hump. And all the women decided right then and there that we were going to win the national championship. There was no doubt in their mind that this was going to be their agenda. Their mission statement was for them to win the Natty and get back to the Final Four. So their mission was more to get back to the Final Four more than anything else. They did a documentary about this team. I don't know what site it was. I don't know if it was Tubi or Hulu, but they did a documentary of the UCLA women's Bruins team through their run this upcoming year. And it was so remarkable to watch this team that you had to fall in love with Corey Close and the squad. And what they were doing was they were so dialed in and so focused on the mission that they were not afraid of the moment. And it's a poetic justice because the entire year they were 37-1. The one team that got them was Texas. Oddly enough, that was the team they knocked off in the Final Four to get to the national championship. So they had revenge on their mind, and that's when they knocked off Texas. So, and then what they did with South Carolina was a masterclass. Absolute domination from beginning to end. And the biggest thing is, Anthony, in the Final Four, all their points were scored by their six seniors. None of the underclassmen ever did scored 1 point in the tournament in the Final Four. In the national semifinal and the finals, it was the senior class of UCLA that scored. And oh, by the way, it's the first time ever, men's or women's, that a senior class scored all the points for the team in the Final Four, either Final Four or national championship. It was that dominating of a performance. UCLA rightfully deserves to be called the national champions. Congratulations. Nothing more to say. Anthony, let's go to the men.
First things first on the men's side. This national championship game on the men's side averaged 18.3 million viewers on TBS, TNT, True TV, and HBO Max, according to
Wow.
Nielsen, making it the most watched men's tournament final since 2019. How about that? So, fun little.
And actually, I got a fun little thing for you, Anthony, as well. The women's national championship game that was on ABC, ESPN, and ESPN Plus actually averaged 9.9 million viewers. The national championship game itself, the Final Four did 5 million apiece, and the national championship was the third highest rated women's national championship game ever in the history of the tournament. So big things on both sides of the ledger.
Awesome. All right. Before Michigan, well, actually, let's talk about the Final Four first off. Lucas Oil Stadium, Indianapolis, Indiana. First time in 5 years. It was that COVID tournament where all the games were within the state of Indiana, as we all remember. It started off with the East Region champion. They were the 2 seed in the East Region, the UConn Huskies, fresh off of their Palm Sunday miracle victory over Duke in the regional final. Then you had the number 3 seed from the South Region, the upstart Illinois Fighting Illini, making Matt Ward very excited and happy for the first time in 21 years. And then you had the number 2 overall seed and the number 3 overall seed. The number 1 seed in the West region, the Arizona Wildcats, and the number 1 seed in the Midwest region, the Michigan Wolverines. In the first game, it was UConn holding off Illinois 71-62, advancing to the national championship game for the third time in the last 4 years, and were 1 win away from cementing themselves as college basketball's newest dynasty. The second game, highly anticipated battle of 1 seeds, but this wasn't even close. It was the Michigan Wolverines defeating and smashing the Arizona Wildcats 91-73, setting up for the national champion. And those games took place last Saturday night. This championship game took place this past Monday night, and it was the Yukon Huskies representing the Big East squaring off against the Michigan Wolverines representing the Big Ten. Before Michigan took to the floor to face Gonzaga in the title game of the Players Era Championship in November, Wolverines guard Elliot Kadu made a comment to his teammates. He said, and I quote, "We're the best team ever assembled." Michigan then went on to smash Gonzaga by 40 points. From that point on, the Wolverines were the most dominant team in the country, and they ended Monday night the same way they looked on Thanksgiving Eve, as the best team in college basketball. Michigan put an exclamation point on a historic season in Monday night's national championship game, defeating the Yukon Huskies 69-63. Elliot Cadeau, most outstanding player of the Final Four, after finishing with 19 points. The Wolverines won the program's first national championship since 1989 and became the first team to defeat UConn in the Sweet 16 or later since Michigan State beat UConn in the 2009 Final Four. MF, Michigan wins the national championship first in 1989 since 1989, and I found the distance of days. Their last title win came on April 3rd of 1989, defeating Seton Hall.
Yep.
80-79 in overtime at the Old Kingdom
At
in
the Old
Seattle.
Kingdom. Yep.
The great Glenn Rice leading them. Start at that day and go all the way to April 6th of 2026. We're talking a span of, listen to this, 13,517 days.
Wow.
13,517 days. That's how long the people of Ann Arbor, Michigan had to wait for a men's basketball championship. We all remember a couple years ago, MF, you and Bullock, you guys celebrated when your Michigan Wolverines won the college football playoff national championship.
Yep.
January 2024. 2.25 years later, the Michigan Wolverines can say, we are the national champions of men's basketball. First time since 89, 13,517 day wait. Well, MF, after all that time for the people of Ann Arbor, Michigan, your long wait is over.
It was a performance that you could say, but you got to also credit UConn, especially. Let's talk about the semifinals first, and then we'll get into the national championship. I feel like UConn, at the very beginning, it looked like UConn was going to be dominant, and then Illinois made that run, and things got very interesting towards the end. But UConn made the key plays that they needed to make and was able to slam the door and get themselves into the national championship game. The game that I think we all were waiting for was going to be that second game. It was Arizona versus Michigan. And we all thought that was going to be the David and Goliath. We thought that game was going to come down to I think a lot of people thought we were going to have a screaming Michael Fletcher moment in that game. But Michigan absolutely throttled Arizona and gave them no chance to get back into the game. They absolutely dominated it, took them right out of the game early on, and kept the pressure on. And a lot of people were stunned at what Michigan did because a lot of people thought that Arizona was the better team going in. Even though Michigan was the favorite by the odds makers in Vegas, they had Michigan as a slight favorite in that semifinal. I think a lot of people thought that Michigan wasn't going to be able to keep up because of, the way that they've been playing the whole time in the whole 9 yards. But they were able to answer the bell and then some. And then in the national championship game, it was an ugly game. This was a low-scoring, you could say somewhat a defensive battle, which was a little surprising because Michigan normally averages up into the 90s. And UConn, they could easily run it up and down. This could be like a 80, 85 they could put it. But these guys put their game in the 60s, and it was a in your face knockdown drag out, very physical. The referees let these boys play, which 9 times out of 10, um, we always are like, I wish, I hope the referees do not get involved. The referees let the boys play, which I'm glad they did. But in another sense, there was a lot of fouls and a lot of stuff that the refs kind of turned a blind eye on. So I know a lot of people were kind of like, maybe the refs should have gotten a little more involved in the game. But at the end of the day, um, look, Michigan did what they had to do and they got the job done. So for me, they were worthy of winning this game and becoming the national champions. So congratulations to Michigan. Congratulations to the team and everybody involved. What a performance. And yeah, there's really nothing more to say. Anthony Florio, it is all yours.
Indeed. Michigan was not as dominant as it had been early in the NCAA tournament. When it became the first team to score 90 or more points in 5 straight games in a single tournament. But the Wolverines' strengths all season, size, length, and more size, were the difference makers again on Monday night. UConn's plan from the outset wasn't much different from the first few rounds of the NCAA tournament. Get the ball to Terrace Reed Jr. He attempted 3 of the Huskies' first 4 shots, but struggled to finish against the length and size of Michigan's Ade Mara. The Wolverines' edge in that area was a factor at the other end also, as Michigan collected 3 offensive rebounds and 6 points in the paint before the first media timeout. The first 15 minutes of the game, however, mostly trended in UConn's direction. The Huskies kept Michigan out of transition, with the Wolverines having 0 fast break points in the first half and only 1 opportunity to get out and run. UConn was controlling the tempo, holding its own on the backboards and getting a boost from Michigan's shooting struggles. The Wolverines missed their first 10. Listen to that. Wolverines missed their first 10 3-point attempts. Michigan's Yaxel Lendeborg looked like a shell of the player who earned All-American and Big Ten Player of the Year honors. He played all 20 minutes in the first half, but he was only 1 out of 5 from the field and was ineffective at both ends of the floor. But the second half belonged to Michigan, which wore down UConn with its size and ability to withstand the Huskies' physicality. UConn's season-long issues with foul trouble caused problems. Solo Ball had 4 fouls early in the second half, and Silas Demery Jr. fouled out. The Wolverines overcame their shooting issues by dominating 2 areas that are familiar to them, the paint and free throw line. They had a combined 61 points in those areas compared with the Huskies' 34. UConn ran out of answers midway through the second half. The Huskies missed 13 consecutive 3-point attempts at one point in the game. Entering the final 4 minutes of the game, UConn was 5 for 21 on its first shot offense in the second half, per ESPN research. And the Huskies were 1 for 9 on shots contested by Mara. Michigan's size and length around the rim, 4 blocks after halftime, were a major deterrent. Lendeborg had 9 points and 3 rebounds in the second half, looking much more like the two-way battering ram who overpowered opponents all season. Mara's counting stats were not as impressive as his 26-point semifinal performance, but he held Terrace Reed Jr. to his worst game of the postseason. Morez Johnson Jr. had a double-double, 12 points and 10 rebounds. Cadeau, after 2 maligned seasons at North Carolina, changed the game in the second half. He constantly played in attack mode, probing around the UConn defense to find openings. He had a critical 3-point play in the second half to give Michigan breathing room and buried a 3 to put the Wolverines up 11. It's fitting that the Wolverines were forced to trust their identity in the national championship game. At no point in the season did Michigan's confidence in its ceiling waver. It came close once, just a few days before Michigan put the nation on notice with its performance in Vegas, and the best team ever assembled remark went public. Dusty May and his staff thought about going back to the drawing board. Something wasn't working. An overtime win over Wake Forest, a close win at TCU. The Wolverines were not looking like a Final Four team. May and his assistant coaches spent time trying to figure out whether they should change their lineup, whether the jumbo front court wasn't going to work. Staying the course has been a theme for Michigan all season. The Wolverines' loss to Purdue in the Big Ten championship game was the most vulnerable the Wolverines looked all season. The 8-point loss was the largest margin of their 3 losses, and the game was out of reach for most of the second half. It was not an ideal way for what had been the nation's most dominant team since November to enter the NCAA tournament. In Dusty May's eyes, however, it was just a wake-up call, nothing more. It was not a reason to forget the first 4 months of the season and try something new. Fast forward to Monday's halftime buzzer, and Will Shedder gathered his teammates around him in a huddle. It wasn't unique. May's teams have done it since he was at Florida Atlantic, but this one had a little bit of an edge to it. Shedder got into his teammates, reminding them what was at stake. He said, "I was just telling them what everyone needed to hear. Everyone was thinking it. We needed to stick together, play our brand of basketball. We did not play our best basketball, and our best basketball was ahead of us." Burnett recalled Shedder saying, "And we're up 4 for a national championship, so lay it all out there on the line and leave no regrets." That Thanksgiving Eve win over Gonzaga and the subsequent proclamations of greatness from Lindeborg put a target on Michigan's back all season, but Monday night, the Wolverines proved they were right. This, Burnett told ESPN, is the ultimate target. And it certainly was. And a great performance by Michigan. In the first 5 games, they scored over 90 points in all 5 of those games before this championship game. Their closest margin of victory was 13 points in those 5 games. That was the win over Alabama in the regional in the Sweet 16. That was until this championship game where they only won by 6 and didn't reach 90 points. But it didn't matter. The Michigan Wolverines winning the national championship, first time since 1989, with the great Glenn Rice, Elliot Cadeau, most outstanding player of the tournament, and rightfully so. I mean, I did have some doubts about Michigan. I did not like what I saw from them when they lost that Big Ten title game to Purdue in the Big Ten tournament there. I mean, I had my doubts about them. I really did. I'm like, I think they'll make a good run. I just don't know if they're gonna get over the hump because I was all in. I was all in on Duke. We were all in on Duke.
I think everybody was all in on Duke.
Duke was the overwhelming favorite to win the national championship. Right behind them, no question about it, was Arizona.
Yeah.
I mean,
I think honestly, I think a lot of people had Michigan either the 3rd or the 4th best pick going into the tournament.
maybe
I think
3rd.
maybe the 3rd because
there was
a
some
lot of
doubts
people
about Florida.
yeah, there was doubts from Florida. I know a lot of people were rooting for Houston because I think a lot of people thought Houston had a shot at it.
Oh,
but
definitely.
yeah, I mean definitely UConn was probably like the 5th or the 6th. But the one team, but the 3 that were definitely out there was Duke, Arizona, and then Michigan were like the top 3 in everybody's pools that I could think of.
And speaking of pools, we want to take this moment to congratulate Michael Bullock. Michael Bullock was the winner of our TXN Sports World Bracket Manager Group.
Yep.
So 102 points Michael Bullock scored. I finished 2nd with 84. UMF finished 3rd with 80. And then finishing in 4th, our dear friend Brian Keenan, who I added as an offline player because of capabilities I didn't even know I had as the manager of the Bracket Manager Group. It spanned over 2 separate pools, but rest assured, next year it will be one pool. I guarantee it, and I will make certain of that next year.
And
So
actually, in our Discord group, it was our friend Mexi. Uh, he's called his name is Abel, but we like to call him Mexi. He won our bracket manager group. As a matter of fact, he actually picked the Michigan Wolverines to win the national championship.
good for
So
him.
he
That's
so
great.
he actually won it all. I actually came in second place. I actually was runner up. And in third was my friend Carter. He came in third. Our friend Aubrey, or she likes to be known as Ubs, she came in fourth, and Jake Turner came in dead last
Oh
in
wow,
our bracket manager. So yeah.
awesome. But you tell them next MF next year if they want to join our group, they're more than welcome.
I,
Those four
I,
people.
I offered them, but they wanted it to do their own, so I appreciate it. But
Fair enough.
I gave them the offer, so and I probably will offer them again next season.
Certainly, certainly.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, congratulations to Abel in that group, and of course Michael Bullock in ours. Well deserved, and I'll be sure to give him his flowers tomorrow night when I see him.
Hmm.
But nonetheless, it is sad to think that another March Madness has passed us by. I mean, it went by so fast,
Yeah, it
way too
does.
fast,
It does.
and it's just one of the many reasons why we love this time of the year. But that's the bad news. But the good news is we got some more great things on the pipeline here. I mean, baseball just underway. We got the UFL, and of course, next weekend, not this weekend, next weekend, we start the Stanley Cup and NBA playoffs.
Woo-wee.
And of course, we've also got a little event, I don't know, called WrestleMania.
Yeah.
Top of that. Whew, that's all we can say on that. So we'll definitely put our heads together as far as the exciting future content we got coming up during WrestleMania week next week. We'll definitely put our heads together as far as how that content's going to go. But for right now, let's get back to this. And congratulations again to the women's national champions, the UCLA Bruins, and the men's national champions, the Michigan Wolverines. Well deserved, all of you. So, hell of a job. Enjoy it, drink it in. Special moments that I know all of you, all those young men and women are going to remember for the rest of their lives. All right. We move on to our final order of business on the night. Week number 3 of the UFL season. Only 2 undefeated teams remain as we enter week 3 of this UFL season with the expansion, Orlando Storm and Dallas Renegades sporting 2-0 records. Orlando will get week 3 started when it takes on for the second week in a row. Can you imagine this? Second straight week, they're going to be playing the Louisville Kings. While Dallas will play on Sunday against the another expansion team, the Columbus Aviators. And that's just the beginning. So including a buddy bowl, a UFL buddy bowl to close out the week. I'll explain that in a second. Let's start it off with our first game of week number 3, which will take place on, it'll start on Saturday, or should I say tomorrow night. Tomorrow night, this game will be over on Fox, and it will feature the or the surprise, one of the big surprises of this early season, the Orlando Storm, and they will be heading off to Louisville at Lynn Family Stadium to take on the Louisville Kings. And don't worry, this time I have come prepared for this. I got my notes here, and Orlando opening up as a 3.5 point favorite, and the over under is set at 38.5. These two teams just played last week with Orlando winning 19-9. The biggest takeaway, or realization for that matter, was how excellent Orlando's defense is. While its offense has been somewhat inconsistent, the defense has been solid for the first 2 weeks of the season. Expect that to be the case in this rare back-to-back rematch on the road. I'm going to go with the Orlando Storm to win. I think it's going to be a little bit closer than it was in Orlando last time. I say Orlando wins, keeps this impressive start going. 1917, give me Orlando to defeat Louisville. So, MF, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, I'm with you on this one. I think Orlando's going to win as well. I think it's going to be a very interesting game. It could be a hard fought battle, but I could see it being just as similar to game number one, like what happened last week. But I do believe it's going to end up being them winning it. So yeah, really nothing more to say. Anthony, it's yours.
All right, MF, you'll lead off on our next game. Saturday, 12 noon on ESPN. It will be the Houston Gamblers squaring off against the reigning, defending, undisputed UFL champions, the DC Defenders, at Audi Field in Washington, D.C. DC. DC is opening up as a 6.5 point favorite. The over-under is set at 47.5. MF, what says you?
Yeah, they're predicting high scoring game. They really think that there's going to be a lot of points in this one. And plus, with DC at home, this is why they kind of went with DC. But Houston has really surprised a little bit. They've been lying under, not really been an amazing team. But I do believe that, yes, this should be a victory for DC. And I do believe that it's going to be a hard fought battle. But a little higher scoring. I do agree with that. Give me the DC Defenders to win it. Anthony, it's yours.
I got to be honest, MF. I was impressed with how quarterback Nolan Henderson made the most of his opportunities, playing well after coming in for the injured Hunter Deckers. Now, will that be a sign of more things to come, or was last week just an anomaly?
Mm.
It could be. I think it could be more of a sign of things to come because if you remember, Henderson was the starter coming out of camp. Houston's defense is for real, especially the way it gets pressure. I do like how DC responded after losing the previous week, and I expect its offense to find some big plays as the game wears on. Look for a closer than expected game in front of the Defenders crowd for their first home game of the season, but I'm going to go with the DC Defenders to win it. I'm going to say the final score here, 24-21, give me DC to defeat Houston. First half of a Sunday doubleheader. Sunday at 12 noon on ABC, it will be the Columbus Aviators squaring off against the Dallas Renegades from Toyota Stadium in Frisco, Texas. And Dallas opening up as the biggest favorite of the week. Dallas is opening up as a 7.5 point favorite with the over-under set at 46.5. I'm going to make a statement. I'm going to make it right now, and I'm going to make it clear and to the point. In my honest opinion, I know it's early, but I don't care. The Dallas Renegades, in my opinion, look like the best team in the UFL, especially on offense. Austin Reed is the early favorite for league MVP, given his strong play and the efficiency of this offense. Coach Rick Neuheisel has been a phenomenal addition to the league, and he's got his team playing lights out. The Aviators compete well, but struggle with bouts of inconsistency throughout stretches of the game. That inconsistency will give the high-flying Renegades enough of a cushion to more than cover that spread. I got this as my lock of the week. Dallas wins this one going away, 31-14. Give me Dallas to have no trouble with Columbus. And as I just said, and as I just stated, MF, clear and to the point. For me right now, I know it's early, but to me, the Dallas Renegades are the front runner for the championship as of right now.
Yeah, they're looking really good. I can't deny that either. Dallas is looking very strong, and I do believe that they could be. We could see in the UFL final. Like that's how
Definitely.
good they are. they could actually make the championship game. There's no doubt in my mind. The way they've been playing lately, I do believe that they should win this one and win this one going away. So I agree with that. So, Anthony, it's the Bloody Bowl, the final game of the week.
Oh, baby, here we go. The final game of week 3 of the UFL as part of as the second half of that Sunday doubleheader. And we got ourselves a Buddy Bowl in the UFL. Sunday afternoon at 3 p.m., also on ABC, it will be MF's team, the Birmingham Stallions, squaring off against my new team, the St. Louis Battlehawks, from the Dome at America Center in St. Louis. Birmingham opening up as a 2.5-point favorite with the over-under set at 42.5. Nothing more to say. MF, your Birmingham Stallions versus my St. Louis Battlehawks in the Dome at America's Center. May the best team win. Who you got?
I am a little frustrated with the Stallions right now
Oh, yeah. What
because
happened last week?
I think AJ McCarron said it best. We blew ourselves in the foot. We made too many mistakes. We made too many penalties. We made too many errors. They kept the game close and they beat us on a field goal at the end. I mean, what is there to say? We did not play Stallion football, and that's not what our team is designed. Matt Corral was fine, not good, but he could be better. Our running game was somewhat non-existent. That was a problem. And our defense, how great our defense is, Anthony. You could say there was a lot of holes that basically we gave up some big plays. So, and there was a lot of mistakes, mental errors, false starts. They were turning the ball over. They shot themselves in the foot. They need to get back to that identity of what made them the most powerful team in the UFL and the USFL when they were winning championships left and right. So I feel like if there was ever a game to get had, this may be it. Being in St. Louis, being at that in that dome, the crowd's going to be electric because they're both 1-1. So it could go either way, but I hope that the Stallions figured it out, and I think they will. They're going to come out with a win, but it's going to be closer than what the experts have it. I think they did say that Birmingham is a slight favorite, but I do believe it will be like that slight. I could see it be like a 3-point margin, like a 27-24 affair. But I do believe, would I be shocked if St. Louis wins? No. Because if we see the same Birmingham like we saw last week, I don't know, Anthony. We might have problems. We may have some big problems in Birmingham. But I got the Stallions. I think they'll win, so it's yours.
Yeah. Defensively, the Battlehawks have given their team a chance to win games, but the offense needs to find its rhythm. Until that happens, this team will get close to the victory line, but not cross it. Birmingham has bouts of explosiveness, and the key is ensuring they maintain that level throughout the game. Expect them to find consistency on the road, indoors, against the Battlehawks. But it's a Buddy Bowl game, and as is the customary, we got to go head to head on this one. So, I mean, even though I do have this feeling that Birmingham is going to find a way, I got to go with my team. I got to go with St. Louis. I'm going to say 27-25, but nonetheless, I'm going to go with the St. Louis Battlehawks to upset the Birmingham Stallions. So we'll see what happens. May the best team win. So, all right. With that being said, that will put the bow on this edition of TXN Sports World. We want to thank you all so very much for tuning in as always. We will be back with you again tomorrow night, 11 p.m., immediately following SmackDown. MF will have it. Braves Fan 95. We got a huge edition of the Cerebral Smack Talk. We got TNA Impact. We got Friday Night SmackDown. And we are going to set the table for the TNA Rebellion pay-per-view that goes down in Cleveland this Saturday night. And then from there, we got our WrestleMania week content coming up. It starts on Tuesday night with Ridiculously Raw. Monday Night Raw, go home show for WrestleMania from Sacramento. We've also got the first of 2 weeks worth of NXT Revenge. And then we will take it from there. So MF and I, like I said, will put our heads together and we'll hopefully have the full listings for the WrestleMania week content tomorrow night. So that's it. So until tomorrow night for the Cerebral Smack Talk over on MF's channel, Braceway 95. This is Anthony Florio here for good old MF Michael Fletcher, and in spirit, Michael Bullock, and always and forever our First Lady Dee Dee Woodson. You know the routine, everybody. Thumbs up. Talk to you later. Yeah, throw it up, Fortune Forest style. Bye for now, my friends. God bless. Be good to each other. Have a blessed Friday, and until tomorrow night, for the Cerebral Smack Talk, you have been watching TXN Sports World right here on the Tone 25 on YouTube and StreamYard.com. For everybody who has been a part of this one, for now, Anthony Florio, so long, and bye, everybody, bye.